Welcome back to the BTS Happy Hour podcast. I'm your host, Andrea. Charlie Puth's new song featuring Jungkook was released on June 24th. The music video was also released at the same time. I think ARMY and Charlie Puth fans were, I don't know if his fans have a fandom name or not, but we were all looking forward to this song. And when I first heard the clip, I thought it sounded very promising. It already seemed like something you'd remember, like a catchy pop song. And I think the song is really good, and their voices both sound great. They have about equal parts in the song, and I think it was just a lot of fun, and it's a good summer song. My only criticism of the song is that it is too short. It's only 2 minutes and 34 seconds. And the songwriters are Jacob Kasher and Charlie Puth. And if you listen to it, you could tell where it would be easy to add more lyrics. I think they could have added one more verse, and then at the very end, they end the song a little bit too abruptly. And I think they could have easily just kept it going with how the beat is, and then just repeat, or what you gonna do now, multiple times as a coda. And because you want to just keep hearing it, and it seemed like you're not ready for the song to end already. So I think that's all I would say about that. And otherwise, I think it's a very good song, and I really like it. When we wanted to see the video, I know I saw on Twitter, like all of ARMY, we were looking for it on YouTube, and then once you get there, the link might be broken. So I think it crashed because too many people were trying to go to the link, and I'm not sure why that happens, because it seems like YouTube is set up for, a lot of people to log in at the same time. So I'm not quite sure why that happened, but I think people were saying that Charlie's team should have set it up as a premiere, so that way it would be counting down and people would be already on the page, and then they're just waiting for the video to start at the time. So I think that's the logic that I came up with in my head. So if maybe Western artists don't always do that. I know Taylor Swift, when she premieres a new video, she uses that feature, but I don't know if everybody else in the West does that, or they just go ahead and post the video because they're not used to, millions of people trying to click on it at the same time. So I don't think maybe it's as common in the West. People don't look forward to MVs as much, but it seems like the big labels in K-pop, they all use that feature. And so I don't really see that happen with K-pop songs when there's a big song release. But, eventually the link did work, and the MV, everybody watched the MV, and it was a really fun video. I think very colorful. It was nice to see Jungkook outside of BTS kind of doing something a little bit different. And as far as I could tell, the premise of the video is that Charlie Puth is a guy talking to a psychiatrist about his relationship that ended. And they have a very stereotypical looking guy who's a psychiatrist. He resembles Sigmund Freud, who's, the most famous psychiatrist ever. And Jungkook is in it. It's hard to tell. I mean, I don't want to look too deeply into this, but it's hard to tell like what exactly his role is in this video. Is he a guy just like Charlie that's singing about this person, this relationship, or is he kind of a part of Charlie's mind, like id or ego or something? So that's, people have all sorts of interpretations for this, but I think it was a pretty fun video with some comedy in it. And I wish maybe BTS should try to do that a little bit more, have a video that's comedic, rather than always having a serious style. I mean, maybe they don't always do that, but it would be fun to kind of lean into their comedic skills sometimes. And, there's some pretty funny scenes in this MV. I don't know who came up with it, but it seems like they had a couple set pieces where there's Charlie talking to the psychiatrist, and he's wearing this like very bright green suit and no shirt under it. And then Jungkook, in his own separate scenes, he's wearing like very bright hot pink sporty outfit with like a jacket and pants, and he's in a room that's all grass, which is pretty funny. It's like, what is this room? So I think that kind of contributes to people thinking that he's, a part of Charlie's mind or his personality, or, not a real person. Because, why would you have a room that has all grass? There's the lyric where it implies he's drinking, meaning alcohol, for the pain, but then he's actually drinking water in the video. So I think that's pretty funny that he doesn't want to be depicted drinking alcohol, but okay, water. Like, who would drink water for the pain of a relationship that ended? So I thought that was pretty funny. But and I don't know if this is Charlie Puth's typical style of videos. I don't really watch too many videos, and I don't know what he's done in the past as far as concepts, but it seemed like it was just a light comedic video. And there was also a funny scene with a car, and Charlie Puth is driving, and for some reason Jungkook is hanging off the front hood of the car, like singing to Charlie, and he slips down under the car at one point, and then he shows up next to him as the passenger to Charlie driving. And I think it was pretty funny. It just shows his fun side, and it had some very colorful outfits, so I think they were aiming for either a spring and summer kind of look, or they may have been going for preppy type of looks, because I think when you use the pink and green like that is what that aesthetic is from. Or maybe preppy from the 80s or something, though. But yeah, I really liked the video, and I saw an interview where Charlie said he worked with Jungkook not knowing that BTS had this break coming up, and so I think that really worked out well for him, because there's a lot of focus from ARMY on this collab, whereas maybe if other stuff was going on with BTS right now, they wouldn't necessarily have all the time to be streaming and giving attention to this new song. But I think it's good that it came out now. It gives ARMY something to look at and listen to. And Charlie did say that Jungkook added a lot to the song musically and sang it with a perfect vocal. So yeah, of course we expect that from him, and that he's very hardworking and wants a song to sound perfect. There was a set where it's just a plain white room, and then they both are on this small circle spinning around, and I think that kind of contributed to thinking that Jungkook was just in his mind, because they wore like the opposite outfits, like white versus black, and then Jungkook would kind of mirror Charlie's moves a little bit. Like if his arms are up, then his arms are up. So I think that kind of contributed to not thinking he's a real character in this. And then at the end, it shows that Charlie's in the psychiatrist's office, and then Charlie seems really surprised to see Jungkook in the same room as him. So I think that also contributed to thinking that he's not supposed to exist in real life. He's supposed to be inside Charlie's head or something. So I thought that was a really fun twist at the end of that. And I don't know if you guys have Spotify, you can see what new songs come out on the New Music Friday playlist, and I always check that sometimes just to see, okay, what else is out there in the world other than, the BTS songs that I'm listening to. And I noticed right away that Left and Right is up against some very big artists this week. Like Beyonce had a song, Taylor Swift had a song, Eminem had a song, some other artists I don't really follow, but I recognize their names. And so, Beyonce, she hasn't had new music in a long time. So, of course, she's going to have a lot of streams because people are like, oh, well, what's she up to? What is her new sound? And Taylor Swift's song is for the Where the Crawdads Sing soundtrack, and we haven't heard new music from her in, I guess, since last year, because her last releases were Taylor's version of Red, and I think that was in November 2021. So yeah, we haven't had new music from her in a while. So it's Left and Right is up against some pretty big competition, and I have to respect Charlie and Jungkook. I don't know who made that decision, but that they don't mind going up against, the big A-list artists. They're not threatened by that. So I think that's great. And that's justified too, because, any song that has BTS in it, they shouldn't feel like, oh, we got to change our date of release because this other artist is coming out with something. Nope, they're going to release it on the date they want to release it. So I think that's great, and that will help both Charlie and BTS, I think, because, I'm sure there's still a lot of people out there that aren't aware of BTS, and so doing a collab with a Western artist can only help with further exposure. And as far as I know, I think Left and Right did really well on streams and MV views, so I think that's a great job by both parties. And then speaking of new releases, we got more details about J-Hope's album Jack in the Box, which now has a release date on July 15th. On June 25th, Big Hit posted an announcement on Weverse, and they said we're announcing the release of Jack in the Box, and BTS has turned the page on their new chapter, throughout which the members will harmoniously carry out their group and individual activities. J-Hope will be the first member of BTS to start this journey and release his solo album. The title of the album, Jack in the Box, represents his aspirations to break the mold and grow further. Okay, that's very interesting detail there. And then, we'll notice what they mean by that when I talk about the concept photos in a second. Also on this note, starting with his pre-release track to be released on July 1st, diverse content to show J-Hope's creative identity as an artist will be introduced. In the same week, they've released album teaser photos and a video teaser, and just with the title Jack in the Box, that already tells you a little bit about the tone of the album. Like, you think of images of a jester, and a jester that not necessarily like a happy jester. Like, we know jesters is like, it usually has a kind of a dark or sinister undertone to it, because we've seen jesters in like horror movies and stuff like that, or Halloween. And in the teaser photos that got released, you see J-Hope, he looks very serious, and he has a dark side, and he's got the one photo he's in shadow, and he's got the jester hat on, and it kind of looks like where a serial killer or something is gonna walk up to somebody in a horror movie. I think he's really going for a completely different side to J-Hope than we're used to. And some other references that the photos reminded me of were the Joker 2019 movie with Joaquin Phoenix, just kind of a dark side of life, and I don't know, depressing, but if that's what he's going for, or if it just, it's like, just maybe he's just going for like the opposite of what we know about J-Hope, just, very happy, sunshine and rainbows and smiles, and he might be just going for like, this is the other side of J-Hope. And the photos, they also remind me of those Cause figures. I don't know if you've seen that, but those are those toy figures that J-Hope and I think RM have a collection of, like, which I always found creepy. It's like they're cartoony, but then they're sinister. Like, they look like, not fun toys that you give to like little kids. They're just like something like possibly evil about them. And they released a couple more photos in the days following. I guess More is going to be the name of the pre-release track. And J-Hope, he's shown in like all white outfit and all black outfit on different photos. And he looks very emo, and he's like pictured with a band in a garage. In one of the photos, like he's the lead singer of it. And it's a very odd photo because the other people are just kind of standing around like they're zombies or something in this garage, but he's the only one taking, dynamic action. Like he's the singer of it and he's leading it. And I noticed his makeup is very different from the J-Hope we are used to. Like he has all this dark makeup around his eyes. He's not smiling, and he's got I guess I don't know what it's called, but like piercings near his eyes, like right near in the inner corner of his eyes, whatever that's called. And some of the photos, they have a very stark background, like they're in a workplace, like in an office or something, but it looks like a real office, like with just, desks and chairs and people working, and it seems like it's meant to look realistic. So I don't know what that setting is that and how that pertains to his album or Jack in the Box, but very curious about what that's going to mean. And yeah, there's one photo he's at the copy machine. It's like, oh my god, this is the dark version of Office Space. And then the other thing I noted in these photos were that if you see there's other people in them, normally we don't see other people in teaser photos or concept photos, and so it's very weird to see some random people in there, but clearly that's all part of his aesthetic for this album. But the people, they seem to have like deformed or burned faces, and I don't know if that's were they born like that? Did somebody do something to them? Is J-Hope evil and did something? Or is it like a thing where there's a disease out there that's, pandemic, and then maybe J-Hope is immune from it? I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities with that. But I think it's great to see J-Hope's creativity, and I'm looking forward to his song that's going to be released very soon. But yeah, this is what he's giving us so far. Very dark side to J-Hope. Also this week, this is some Chapter 2 news. BTS members doing individual things. We heard that reports that V was going to be attending the Celine fashion show in Paris. And if you don't know, that's a designer brand out there that he often wears. And some of the other members wear their fashions as well. And I don't think that anyone in BTS is paid to be their brand ambassador or anything like that, because officially they are only the global ambassadors for Louis Vuitton. So I think if Celine invited V or anyone else, it would just be, I don't know if I guess they can't compensate them because then that would be a deal. But I think just the fact that they will cover the travel expenses and, have a spot for them at the show to sit, because I'm sure it's very exclusive seating, that's going to be the compensation. Or maybe it's like a one-time thing that they get. I don't know. But in any case, V accepted this invitation. And we heard that V will be going with Park Bo-gum, who is his friend, who's an actor, as well as Lisa from Blackpink. And then the three of them would be going to France in a private plane that is sent by Celine. So I guess that makes it, I don't know if they will take the whole, all the way from Korea to there on a private plane or just from a certain point. But, we find out that this plane was sent for the three of them on June 24th, and they went to attend the Celine Men's Summer 2023 fashion show. And this got a lot of people excited and hyped up for, V being part of the fashion world. I think he's worn their brand in the past, so he must be a big fan of it. And maybe he thought this would be a great opportunity to make some connections in the fashion world, or maybe he just goes because he likes their clothing line. But, whatever his reasons, he didn't really say. We just heard that he's going, and we saw this all unfold on social media. They left on their plane. We got some photos of him at the airport, and V had at least a day or two to just do fun things in France. And so we saw some photos of him at various places. He had gone to a nightclub the night before, and he played some basketball with people. So it was pretty fun to see V going about, his business, having fun in France. And he was giving us pictures along the way. So, he's not required to do that, but I guess he wanted to keep ARMY up to date with all of his happenings. So it was pretty nice insight to what he was doing in Paris, and everybody was excited to see that. They loved his fashions and his style, so I think V was impressing everybody. And then on the day of the fashion show, it was a huge deal. Apparently this isn't as big of an event as it was on this day that V was attending. There's like gigantic crowds outside, like everybody was showing up. A lot of ARMY was there, and they're just waiting outside of the building where this fashion show was going to be held. And I don't think that happens usually. It's just like, okay, the fashion show takes place, and people, see clips of it or not, and they don't necessarily wait outside to see who's attending it, because it's like usually just, the typical people. So I think everybody, like people in Paris, were like really blown away by how much V drew such a big crowd. And you could say, oh, well, maybe they were there for Lisa and Park Bo-gum, but I don't think that's the case, just judging by how many ARMY were posting about it and what the crowds were chanting and who they were chanting for. And then, a lot of them were holding up like BTS albums. So I think it was pretty clear to anybody that most of that huge crowd were ARMY. So I think the people that were running the fashion show, people in the fashion world, they were very impressed by the giant crowds and the attention that V was bringing to this fashion show. And I'm sure whoever's idea this was at Celine, they are like getting a raise right now, because they've brought, a lot of like free publicity to Celine. And it's a brand that not too many people are familiar with, I think. It doesn't have like as big of name recognition as like Louis Vuitton or Gucci or, Givenchy, all the other name brands out there. So yeah, so huge crowds turned out just to see a glimpse of V, just to like walk in for a few minutes, walking into the fashion show. And he showed up, and the three of them all together were there, and V had a very eye-catching outfit. He had this red leather jacket. It was very bright red, and a black top that had sequins on it, and it had kind of crystals on it around the neck part, so it sort of looked like a necklace, and black leather pants. So he looked like, wow, fashion icon right there. I don't know if he styled himself and was wearing like Celine, or if he, had a high stylist with him to give him like an amazing outfit. But whoever decided it was a good choice of outfit, because he really caught everyone's eye, especially from afar. It's like the red of the jacket really stood out. And Lisa and Park Bo-gum, they were kind of both wearing black, so I'm sorry to say, but they blended in a little bit, and it looked like V was the main character there. So I think if Lisa wanted to stand out a little more, maybe she should have worn like a different color, or just some kind of crazy look, like Lady Gaga in her meat dress, or just something like over the top. But it kind of looked like if you were watching from the crowd, it's like V definitely stood out. And everybody, there was pictures posted everywhere on social media, and it was on Twitter. And then so they waved to the crowd, and then they went in, and the fashion show happened. It didn't seem to take very long. It was just like, however many people walk by with their fashion, with the current line. And apparently there was an after party that they all went to as well, and there's some pictures and video from that, and it seemed to be, there's a live band, and it seemed to be in some kind of like brick building. I'm sure there was like alcohol and food there. There was a pole that people were like spinning around on, so I think that was one of the videos going around, is that Lisa was on this pole, and then V spun around on it too. So it looked like, they were having a fun time. They weren't like stripping or anything. They were just kind of like walking around the pole. So you could tell they were having a good time. And then afterwards, I don't think V stayed at that very long. In fact, I heard he was like leaving for the airport like pretty soon after that show. So he came back on his trip, and then there was some kind of like minor controversy of when V came, and then he came out of the airport and he went straight into his car. He didn't like wave at the crowd or whatever. And, some people were like, oh, he didn't say hi to us fans or whatever. And it's like, okay, he isn't required to do that. This is technically on his personal time, and he's not there as a member of BTS. And I mean, even if he was, it's just kind of like, maybe he's like super tired. Maybe he doesn't want to have tons of pictures taken of him. He just wants to like head home after a long flight. So I don't think anyone should feel offended that he didn't stop and wave at everybody. And, he's not required to anyway. So I wish people would stop complaining about like every little thing. It's like, you got so many pictures and videos of him. Like, what else do you want? Like, oh, he didn't stop for 2 seconds and wave at everybody as he was getting into his car. It's like, what do you want? Like, this is why they need to take a break, because there's like so many demands on them, and they have to do everything perfectly. Otherwise, how many thousands of people complain about it, and nobody wants to see like negative comments like that. So I wish people would just calm down and just take whatever they get. It's like, if he's gonna pose for photos, then he will, and if he's not, then oh well, just deal with it. So we saw that afterward, but like, a few days later, there was a statement by Big Hit about some of the legal proceedings they were doing. And so some of the articles I read seemed to think that had to do with V, and people who got footage of him or were posting about him in regards to this trip, or that earlier rumor that he was driving to Jeju Island with Jennie from Blackpink. And this could be Big Hit is like suing anybody who was spreading that information, or had otherwise malicious postings about V and like saying negative things online. So I think some people were thinking that was related to that, and so people out there were violating the rules. Well, you're gonna get a lawsuit from Big Hit, so can't feel bad about those people. So I just saw on Twitter there's an article from K Media that explained that V had to leave the airport quickly because a security situation developed. So basically the plane had come late and the crowd had been building up, and they asked people to go home, but then some didn't, and then others came, and so it became kind of a situation. And I'm sure the security team advised V that it would be safest to just kind of go straight to the car and not stop just in case. So this wasn't even a case of V being rude or not wanting to greet fans at all. So that's been debunked now that I've read this, and I think I saw a couple of sources that said that. So, like, this whole thing was the fault of crazy fans, and then they're gonna go and say, oh, V was being rude, and then V disappointed us, and this and that. So, it's like, this whole thing was the fault of crazy fans. So, if you want to blame anybody, then you can blame them. People shouldn't be waiting around at the airport for when BTS members land there anyway, and this kind of thing is going to happen. It's not safe for them or the fans, you know? So that's what happened with that. And then as far as the three of them taking a plane trip to get to France, there was a rumor related to this that I saw on Twitter, and I know none of you actually believe this because it's just not very believable. But when we found out that V, Lisa, and Park Bogum were going to go on a private jet, there were blinks trying to say that the jet belonged to Lisa, and then she was allowing V and Park Bogum to hitch a ride on her plane. And it's like, this is something they literally made up. There's like nothing to back that up. She isn't rich enough to own a private plane, and there's like no shame in admitting that. You know, a lot of people can't afford a private plane, but you know, she's not at that level, and there's no shame in flying first class commercial and getting there that way. I mean, you got to be rich for that too. And just okay, I asked an expert about this, and by expert I mean I asked Morgan. He said that a Gulfstream jet is typically going to cost $18 million. And then I looked at costs, and it's like, okay, this model of Gulfstream costs $22 million, and there's another model that costs $60 million. So according to like the blue book, I guess, of airplanes. So, but he said he was saying $18 million, like for a typical Gulfstream jet. And so that's a lot of money that most people don't have, even rich people. Taylor Swift has a private plane. She has $400 million net worth. Kim Kardashian has a private plane. She's worth $1.8 billion. Bang PD is worth $1.3 billion. As far as I know, he doesn't have one, but he could get one if he wanted to. And just for comparison of K-pop idols, J-Hope apparently has a net worth of $26 million, and he's the wealthiest member of BTS. Lisa is the wealthiest member of Blackpink, but her net worth is $10 million. So there's absolutely no way she would own a private plane. It's like not, it would be such a bad idea because it would take up like all her money if she had one, because it's the cost of the plane, plus you got to pay for the pilot and flight attendants and maintenance and, you know, very expensive jet fuel and storage fees. So, I mean, I know you guys didn't believe that to begin with, but it doesn't add up if you even look at the facts. So, yeah, that was a private plane that Celine sent for the three of them. It was not owned by Lisa. So speaking of travel, we know that RM recently went on a European vacation where he visited Basel, Switzerland, and Germany and Paris, and he saw all kinds of art museums. And we didn't even know this was happening until he came back to Korea, and there were people at the airport that were filming him, even though this was his like private trip on personal time. So that's another thing that, like, okay, chapter 2 is that there better not be like people bothering BTS everywhere they go. But you know, that's gonna happen. Somebody heard it and they went to the airport to bother RM when he came back. So he's, you know, doing his usual stuff, visiting art museums. And then just the other day, he posted on Instagram about how he is a guest on a podcast called Intersections, the Art Basel podcast. And so he was on there as a guest. It was like a 28-minute episode, and he had a lot to say. It was a very interesting episode, and he was talking a lot about, they asked him some questions about how he got interested in art, and he kind of started talking about how he got started with BTS and in getting into music to start with. So he had he was a big fan of Eminem and Nas at age 13, but before that he was interested in being a poet and a writer, and so obviously that naturally leads into being a rapper. When you're writing song lyrics and rapping, that's all tied together. And he was part of this underground rap organization, I guess you would call it. He went to an performance audition. He forgot his lyrics, and at that point he was going to give up on rapping and just focus on studying, which is crazy because that's not what happened. And a famous rapper named Sleepy saw his performance, and even though he thinks he didn't do well, he was memorable enough that this rapper mentioned him to Bang PD at Big Hit, and they brought him in, and from there he went back into music and becoming a rapper. And as we know, they built BTS around him as the first member, and they had 30 people that all were trainees and all lived in that dorm at one point, and they were able to whittle that down to 7 people. So it's just really crazy how that happened, because he was going to be a rapper and then he gave up on it, and it's just like because of that one guy recommended him, that one move is what created BTS. So I mean, there's a lot of turning points like that in BTS history where it's like, oh, one thing went a little differently, then this group wouldn't be where it is today. So that's really crazy. And so then the host asked him, like, okay, well, how did BTS get so globally popular beyond Korea? And he mentioned that ARMY had been calling radio stations and kept requesting their songs. So I think that was really nice that he gave credit to ARMY. And then, that their success in America also led to his interest in art, because when he was touring in the US and Europe, they spent a lot of time in their hotel rooms, and so he would be online looking at websites for museums, and he learned a lot about art just from online. And so he talked a lot about relating art to his music, and he mentioned that most artists, they have their whole career and they never get fame, they never get recognition, and so he's inspired to work on his music with longevity in mind, and he doesn't want to just stop at success with BTS in his 20s. He wants to expand beyond that and keep going with music and different types of music, even because he mentioned how there were some artists that they changed mediums, like okay, they did one thing in their 20s and they had a different type of art that they practiced in their 40s, and they succeeded at both of them. And so he related his life as a musician to how these artists are, and so that's helping him kind of look forward and continue his own work and continue improving, because it can be pretty discouraging if you're in a boy band and that comes to an end at some point, and it's like, okay, what do? You're still a creative person, you still have things you want to accomplish and ways to express yourself, but then you have like nowhere to go with it. So I think he appreciates that he's gotten this opportunity, and he's trying to make the most of it and learn from the example of these artists. And he mentioned that he was interested in starting his own private gallery in Korea, and to show his private collection of whatever art he has by that time, because since he just started collecting art, so he must not have like that many, enough to fill a museum, but he wants to add to the art scene in Korea, because they don't seem to have very many galleries or museums, like the same way that we have them all over, big cities in the U.S. and Europe. So I think that's a really inspiring goal to help bring that to Korea, because if they're probably in the beginning of developing more of an art scene, and at this point where people are very open to Korean movies and music and K-dramas and stuff, and I think he wants the same recognition for art, but they need more resources in Korea. They need more people promoting the art community. So I think that's very admirable that he wants to help with that. And I think he sees it as like, okay, that's going to benefit the country, but it also benefit himself, because he wants to keep making his own music and be inspired by other artists. So very interesting podcast episode. He had a lot of thoughtful things to say, and it's definitely worth checking out. So the name of the podcast is called Intersections, the Art Basel podcast. Okay, friendship tattoo update. There's been a lot that's happened in this area, so I just wanted to quickly cover that. We already knew about RM got his 7 tattooed on his ankle, and that J-Hope got his on the back of his leg on the Achilles tendon. Okay, so this week, Suga, still unknown. No word on if he's gotten it done or where it's at. He posted a picture that looked like a 7, but then people were not sure. It could have been a marker or just like a test run. Like he may not have gotten it done yet, but it looks like a marker 7 if it was written with a Sharpie or something. So not totally sure if he's done it yet. And then Jungkook, he actually has gotten a lot of tattoo stuff done. I don't know how long this process took, but first of all, he got his 7 tattooed. It's behind his ear, so that's where he decided. I know that was one of the options when he was talking on that Be Live once, like that people were suggesting. But then he's like, well, how do I see it? So I guess he decided, well, that is the best place where I want to put it. So that's where his is at. And at the same time, or, this could have been months in the making, but he's also covered up and changed some of his other tattoos. I guess he's found a different artist now who has gone over some of his older tattoos. Like, remember how he used to have that big eye on his arm, and that when we were doing blind items, then NT Lawyer was like, oh, that could be Illuminati. And it's like, no, that's not Illuminati. He's not in it. So that part of his tattoo, Jungkook has covered up with the words bulletproof. And so, yeah, that's not on there anymore. So I'm kind of wondering if he just decided, like, okay, this has too many connotations, or maybe he didn't know that that's what people think when you see the eye on the arm. He's like, okay, well, never mind. I'm not that attached to having an eye anyway. But yeah, I think the bulletproof is a lot better. It looks a lot more colorful and bold, and with the Proof album, it makes a lot more sense to have that on his part of his tattoo design. And yeah, he's changed up some other parts of it too, like different flowers. And if you look at the pictures, it's like, oh wow, he's really like changed things up. He's added a snake on his arm as well, and it kind of spells out me. So I was like, oh, that's interesting design. And that had used to be the 3 lines that were on the Korean flag. So I don't know if he just decided, like, well, I don't really like that design, or I want something different, And this is kind of like why I'll never get a tattoo, because I would probably be changing my mind all the time too. I'm like, oh, I don't like this anymore. I'll get something else. But, I guess, just imagine the pain involved. Like, you have to sit there and hours, days to get all of this stuff changed. So I don't know if Jungkook just has like a very high pain threshold, or it's just like, well, it's like if you want to be covered in tattoos, that's just part of it. So yeah, in summary, Jungkook has gotten a 7 behind his ear, and he's also gotten a lot of his other tattoos changed or covered up. And we also know that Jimin got his 7 on his finger, and some people saw it when they were performing on the music shows, but it was kind of hard to see. Just like you'd have to really zoom in and then see like the little tiny 7 on his finger. And so that was just kind of difficult to confirm, but he did post a photo on Weverse, I think it was like just yesterday, showing like up close what it looks like. So he's like, here's my 7, I got it done. And yeah, he also had kind of an update on that. He said he wanted to show everybody on those music show performances, but then his hands were too small, so it was hard to see. So yeah, I think that's funny. There's that whole running joke with like his fingers being small and his hands being small. And then probably the most shocking tattoo news of this week is that Jin got his done, and we had heard that the others had said he got it on the back of his ribs, but just the other day, Jin, I guess he was on vacation at Jeju Island and decided to post a photo of himself shirtless, showing the 7 on his back. Like you could see it if you really zoom in, but it was very small. But this kind of like, rocked everybody, and including ARMY and the other BTS members. They had posted a lot of comments on that post. And it's just funny because his caption was like, I also uploaded my friendship tattoo. And it's just like completely nonchalant caption. Like, oh, that's what's happening here. And yeah, so the other members were posting, like RM was like, I was shocked. And then he's like, I thought you weren't wearing anything on the bottom too. And then Jin said it'd be illegal if I did that. And then J-Hope had tons of emojis, and he was laughing, and he said, holy moly, and that was his response, which I could totally hear him saying that too. And then even Suga, who hasn't even been on Instagram lately, had to comment on that. He's like, what's with the sudden acceleration of 0 to 100? And it's like, I guess, I don't know, it just seemed so funny and like out of character for Jin, who like never takes his shirt off. He never like shows anything. So that's the update on that. And finally today, we all know about the BTS break that was revealed at the Festa dinner. And on June 22nd, the Korea Singers Association released a statement by President Lee Ja-yeon sending out a message to BTS and HYBE labels. Lee Ja-yeon said, I'm overcome by my fear and concern that the BTS Hallyu wave, a movement possessing the greatest cultural soft power that the world has ever witnessed, will vanish soon. In the years leading up to the birth of this movement, it was believed that finding the next Beatles would be a very difficult achievement, and now we have arrived at a point where it is difficult to hope for the next BTS to emerge anytime soon. There is great concern that the heartbeat of Hallyu will cease. And it's like, how are you going to bring up the Beatles and put this comparison out there? And it's like, okay, the Beatles, they released a lot of music in a short time. And if you count the official albums just released in the UK, it was like 13 studio albums in 7 years. And they broke up in 1970. And they were responsible for leading the British invasion, which were, a bunch of English bands and musicians that were really popular here in the US in the 60s. But did anyone in the UK, like who was in power, did anyone in the UK say, hey, Beatles, can you guys get back together? Because we really need you guys out there promoting UK. Or did people think like, okay, wow, this sucks, but that's their decision. It's their band. They're the ones that have to do it, so it's up to them. It's like, no, of course, people just didn't question it. I mean, people didn't like it, of course. Everybody loves the Beatles, so they didn't want them to break up. But it's like, anyway, this whole statement was pretty ridiculous. And then she goes on, the decision to publish this statement was not an easy one. Please will you reconsider the decision to go on a group hiatus for the future of South Korea's music industry? It's like, okay, did you just ignore the whole reason for the festive dinner and like what they explained? They just got done being brutally honest with Army and the world, and they exposed how completely exhausted and creatively drained they are, and how this break is absolutely needed and overdue. I mean, they can't just like up and like, oh, okay, well, let's get back on tour. Let's go back to making albums like right now because this lady said so. But, if it was up to this KSA president, she'd have him like right back out there and not. I mean, it's like she doesn't even care about their whole reasons for going on the break, like their mental health or even like them being able to make their own decisions. It's like, I was really puzzled by this statement. Like, who tells people what to do like that? Like, they're like important famous people. You can't just like order them around like, hey, can you do this because the whole country's depending on you. It's like, oh, no pressure or anything. If the economy or the Korean Singers Association, everybody's depending on BTS so badly, then why did nobody get organized and say, oh, okay, well, let's give BTS an exemption then. Let's get that sorted out. Because they had many years to do that. And if it was going to be that vital, then somebody should have figured it out. But since that didn't happen, they are going to be in control of their own lives and their own path. So this is just, to even ask them that is super disrespectful. And there's more to this statement, but it's like she's so worried that if they are on a break, then all the fans will go away, Army will go away, and they won't like any other groups. It's like, well, that might happen, that might not, but that's not BTS's problem. What happened to all these other groups being like the next BTS or being just as equal to BTS? Like, funny how this president isn't saying, oh, okay, Blackpink, a good thing that we still have Blackpink because we need them to continue with the Hallyu wave, keep it going. It's like, oh, nope, I guess it's all on BTS. It's all because of them. It's like, this, no one should have that pressure put on them. And if we're talking about enlistment and exemptions and stuff, some people are thinking that maybe her motive behind this letter was not to, save this cultural movement. It's more that, okay, if the government hurries up and gives BTS this exemption, then all these other artists who are part of their organization, they can also try to get one too. So that's what some people think this is really about. Like, so BTS will pave the way for others to squeeze in and also get an exemption and say that, oh, we're part of the Hallyu wave, we're crucial to the economy as well. So some people think that's her angle on this. But still, it doesn't matter what her angle is. It's like, it's so inappropriate to ask BTS that. Like, this would never happen in other countries or with other A-list artists. Like, imagine asking like Michael Jackson. It's like, oh, you can't take a break this year even if you want to and you're exhausted from making music. We need you to just keep going out there for the good of the economy. It's like, nobody would do that. So this is all not BTS's problem. They need to, I hope they know that they have pretty much everybody's support on what they're doing and that they don't pay attention to stuff like this. I mean, there's been some very odd reactions that I can't even get into right now because so many things happened this week that I needed to cover in this episode. But there's a bunch of other critics out there that were talking about this, and not everybody seems to understand what BTS is trying to do with this break and why they're doing it. So I don't know. But I did think that it was good to see, netizens, everybody online, pretty much universally was like, hey, this is really inappropriate of the KSA to say that. And this statement is just totally out of line. So I was glad to see that BTS had almost everybody's support on this. And another thing I saw on Twitter is that this lady, this president, apparently she was in the same college class as Jin. Like she had gone back to school, back to university at an older age. Like she was 50 at that time. And she was in the same class as Jin when he went. And so there's the photo out there that you've probably seen. If you saw it, you would recognize it. But it's like her posing with young Jin in college, and it's like, oh look, we were classmates. And it's like, wow, you're really gonna say something like this to your old classmate and just like stab him in the back? It's like I can't believe someone would do that. So anyway, that was a pretty crazy coincidence. And it's funny, I guess Korea is just kind of a small world, because if people can be going to school together and also, interact at some other time for a totally unrelated situation, that's just a crazy coincidence. You can listen to BTS Happy Hour on Samsung Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, or visit btshappyhour.com. If you like the show, please take a moment to rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Weverse. If you've listened all the way to the end of the episode, thank you for being a true fan of the podcast. And in honor of left and right, comment with a left or right arrow emoji on our latest Instagram post. Until next time, this has been the BTS Happy Hour. Thanks for listening, and remember, make every hour a happy one.